What if the loudest thing after a bullet isn't the gunshot? It's the story war that follows. Tonight, we're not solving a murder. We're dissecting the information battlefield that erupted after Charlie Kirk was assassinated in Orem, Utah, and why the chaos felt so engineered, even if we can't name who, if anyone, engineered it. So, back September 10th, 2025, midday, Utah Valley University, a 30-60 rifle, a crowd, a nation watching yet another political life taken. Within hours, our feeds are flooded with certainty, outrage, and exclusive leaks. By the weekend, tens of thousands gathered here in Arizona for a memorial that doubled as politicals' faith and grief, while officials said they were still probing basic facts. That mismatch, the speed of narrative versus the pace of evidence, is your first red flag. So I was listening to this guy this weekend. He's an ex-CIA and he wrote a book about all his different psyops operations. And he had a list of the top 10 things that you should look for in a psyops operation. And I'm not saying this is a psyops operation. I'm just saying I was listening to him. I went and did a little research on his book and his top 10 things, and it just sounded like a lot of things were starting to equate, I think there's a lot of questions that have gone down. There's a lot of inconsistencies with this whole, Charlie Kirk assassination, so I think it has probed a lot of questions. So I think you really need to separate like the actual case from the conversations that are going on. So the case, like, basically is the prosecutors charged a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson. Court filings and reporting say he turned himself in, and prosecutors have signaled they'll seek the death penalty. Investigators in the press have described texts that look like confessions. I've seen so many parodies on his texts that are just unbelievable. But that's one of the things that are making people starting to question, like, those texts are ridiculous. And, and is his motive, enough of his hate? But those claims will live or die in court, and that's the evidence lane. So I kind of wanted to look at the whole conversation lane of things. So a firehouse of conflicting claims or choose your own culprit menu, like viral fake media and instant politicization of it all. And that's the narrative lane. Tonight, we're going to take that second lane, and because it shapes what the public believes long before the judge ever makes his decision. So one of the first red flags to look for is it's called the fire hose of things. So we're just like literally bombarded with all this information. Like within hours, you just saw a rapid high volume narrative push across platforms, clips, carousels, live stream, repeating the same takes before the facts were settled. This is the fire hose of falsehood pattern. It saturates attention so thoroughly that later corrections struggle to catch up. Media monitors flagged the chaos in real time. I remember when this all happened, my son called me and he said, like, Mom, I can't believe it. Charlie Kirk got shot. And then I went to my phone and you could literally see it in real time, like all of it. And then it was just like I kept looking on X and seeing if there was any updates because we didn't know if he had passed yet or if he was going to survive. But that video was just so horrendous. You couldn't imagine that he could have survived that. But it was just like you were waiting minute by minute to see what was going on. And then you have these false AI fact checks. So a lot of people are checking AI. And who knows, just to see, because we're so bombarded with all this information, we don't know what is real and what is not. So then people are going to AI. Maybe they're getting the true story because they can feed through all these different sources. But then then they contradict or it's inaccurate, it just like fuels this more and more confusion. So that 100% happened. Like it was like a clusterfuck of information just being thrown at you and you didn't know what was true. And then when the truth really does come out, you've already heard all these different scenarios and it's really hard to pick out what is true in all of that. And then you have really contradicting, like, different flames of like, it just everything contradicts itself. And then things are just mutually incompatible, like theories that they're just kind of running parallel to each other. So you have, they were saying, oh, he's a extreme leftist and he's Antifa, he's a transgender and this fascism and all this stuff that was written on the bullets. And that started to come out. So you're like, oh, this is a left-wing crime and they're bad, left is bad. And then you get on the other side, the left starting to say the whole other camp going on the other side, is circulating that, this is elaborate plot against far right factions. Like they're just turning on Kirk and Israel and all this other stuff. But they just can't, like, you can't have it both ways. So it's like either it's the extreme right turning on Kirk, or it's the extreme left that is saying that going against him for what they believe is his hate speech, and freedom of speech became another narrative. And it just all comes at you at once, but they just cannot be both at the same time. So you have to really analyze each side and kind of go, which story do I believe? And then you also have this guy coming out, and we're also like, okay, well, then he did it. Then this came out right away. And then again, we go to it's premature certainty, and it's doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd, because we want to know who did this. We want some kind of certainty. We want to know who did this. And this is before forensic could like really even start. This is a very high profile case, and it's just you're just sweeping blame and on everybody. And meanwhile, the FBI director publicly said investigators were still checking for possible accomplices. And then we had the old guy, oh, it was him, and now it's this guy, Tyler Robinson. No, it's this guy. So now we're already confused. Yeah, like I thought you said it was the other guy, and now it's this guy. And now did the other guy, was he working with this guy because he created distraction so this guy could get away? And we all still don't know the answers to this, but it's just kind of creating all, like, we think that we're certain, but there was no certainty. There's still no certainty right now. So it's all these different hot takes, and this is classic for psyops. It's a certainty in the feed and then uncertainty in the file. So we're getting all these, oh, this is certain, this is this guy, but in the files, is it saying something different? We have no idea what the hell is going on. And then you have the emotional peak events, and they become narrative engines. So this weekend was a perfect example of, that was a huge event this weekend in Arizona. God, the airport was packed. Even the highways here were busy. I had friends that were friends with Charlie Kirk that had tickets, tried to go to State Farm Stadium, and they still couldn't get in. And they ended up coming back and watching it with us. I was at my girlfriend's business. She had a big screen TV, and we all watched it there. But it was busy, very busy here. And I heard that on the planes, there was tons of patriots. It was just a huge, huge event, and this huge focal point. And the focal point was like grief, politics, and religion all come together. And it was just emotional. It was a mass event. It was huge. And there was just human responses to it all. There's also powerful amplifiers for preferred narratives. The tone and quotes from the stage made national news and re-cemented storylines before many cases were even like public on all the details. So, Trump's main message there. Trump says he hates opposing opponents at event attended by tens of thousands. Like, that's a very, very strong message. And then we have red flag number 5, and that's fake media artifacts. And so this video went around. I couldn't even pull up the video because I guess it's already been scrubbed, but people have taken screenshots of it. And it's this old video, and it shows Charlie Kirk predicting his death. This is apparently the fake video, but like I said, I think it's been scrubbed, but this apparently came out right when this all happened, and it was him predicting his death, and it went viral before it all got debunked. And this is like 101 psyops. This is crisis misinformation. And it's just a seed of an emotional sticky clip that rides the algorithm while the fact check lags. And newsrooms like track this specific fake, and within days they had debunked it as fake. And if you can remember anything from this video, make it this. Just taking screenshots are not sources. Ask where the full file lives and who hosts it. Memes are not facts. I was going back and forth with someone online, and they sent me a meme, and I'm like, a meme is not a fact. Just say what you feel, but don't send me a meme. If you're going to respond to me in a meme, don't bother. It's ridiculous. Anyways, so don't take screenshots. Screenshots are not resources of information. And then red flag number 6, and that is flood the zone with pivots. So watch how claims are morphed first into stage hoax, then the lone wolf, then organized sell, then back again. The goal isn't to convince, it's to keep you uncertain but engaged. Meanwhile, the formal case progressed. Charges, hearings, prosecutions, it all keeps moving along. But these two clocks are sort of ticking on different timelines and they never sync up. So, you know, an FBI is investigating possible accomplices in Kirk shooting. So we thought they had the guy, and now all of a sudden there's more accomplices. Again, we think that that we believe the case is moving along, but then there's other narratives that was there an accomplice? I don't even know. And then then you have authority ambiguity. This is another thing. Law enforcement must keep lanes open. They need a motive, accomplices, forensic. That necessity of ambiguity becomes fuel in the attention economy. When the FBI director publicly acknowledges examining accomplices, it's proper process. But in the feed, it reads like mystery confirmed, which sustains speculation and spirals. So on Kash Patel sent out this thing. Director of the FBI, I'm committed to ensuring the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination is thorough and exhaustive, pursuing every lead to its conclusion. The full weight of America's law enforcement agencies are actively following the evidence that has emerged, but our efforts extend beyond initial findings. We are examining every facet of this assassination. We are meticulously investigating theories and questions, including the location from where the shot was taken, the possibility of accomplices, the text message confession, and related conversations, Discord chats, the angle of the shot, and bullet impact, how the weapons was transported, hand gestures observed as potential signals near Charlie at the time of his assassination, and visitors to the alleged shooter's residence in the hours and days leading up to September 10th. Some details are known today, while others are still pursued to ensure every possibility is considered. Our primary focus is to complete the investigation and deliver justice. To protect the integrity of the investigation and subsequent prosecution, we cannot release every piece of information we have to the public right now. We will ensure every question is addressed at the appropriate moment. Regarding specific details, such as questions about the plane that allegedly turned off its transponder after departing from an airport near the assassination site, we can share updates when the answers are confirmed. After interviews with the pilot in consultation with the FAA, we determined that transponder was not turned off. Incomplete flight data in rural areas caused the apparent gap. The entire FBI mourns the loss of Charlie Kirk. We will not rest until justice is served, and our investigation into the assassination will continue until every question is answered. So they've already debunked that last point about the pilot. So the pilot that was actually flying the plane, they have already came out in Instagram post debunking that. So there's already different narratives there. And then we have red flag number 8, and that's canonizing and weaponizing. Within days, the memorial narrative hardened. Very martyrdom, vows to carry on the mission, and an organizational rally effect. Turning Point USA leaned into continuity. They have new tour plans, high profile names, big tent energy. None of this proves orchestration. It shows how movements rapidly integrate trauma into momentum. Reporters have documented the donor surge, and speaker lineups have just skyrocketed. And they've had huge donor increase. And I looked at their tax records. They've had huge donor increase in the last 3-4 years. And now apparently it's just skyrocketed. And now you also have Ben Shapiro taking over. He's saying a lot of these school events, but we'll see if that happens. And then you have 9. This one I found, this is the one that I'm not believing this one. You have experts with very thin receipts. You probably notice new accounts presenting as insiders or forensic experts, slick branding, confident tones, light on verifiable credentials. This happens at every high crisis. The best defense is boring. Demand CVs, prior work, and try to reproduce the methods and how they came up to their conclusion. And if you can't replicate it, you can't trust it. And yes, real subject matters. They really speak very cautiously. And I thought this is what like I say, I call bullshit on this. This is ridiculous. So this guy works for, Turning Point, uh, USA. I want to address some of the discussion about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize. This is somewhat graphic, but in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle. And I want people to know. I just spoke with surgeons who worked on Charlie in the hospital. He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very normal for a high powered, high velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times. They always just go through everything. This would have taken out a moose or two on or down on an elk, etc. But it didn't go through Charlie. It stopped. Yeah, I don't so it normally would go through a moose, and it did not go through Charlie. So I thought that was very interesting, and I also saw other videos, but again, we can go back to all these different experts, but they were saying any that bullet is huge, and if that were to go through his neck, it would have blown his whole head off. But what I keep going back to is there was no blood. Even Candace Owens said the camera from behind there was no blood. When they picked him up and carried him to the truck, there was absolutely no his shoes were white. Like, I have a cord going into my artery from chemotherapy treatments, and if I pulled this cord out right now, there would be blood everywhere. There would definitely be blood on my shoes, and there would be blood on my chair. So, it's just that, like, that one thing with the lack of blood and saying this, like and Candace Owens was talking about this today, it really goes to his base, the Christians. We really wanna believe in a miracle, but I don't believe this was that was a miracle. A bullet that size cannot like, his magic bones cannot stop this. I don't believe that for a second. So anyways, the 10th and final one is the historic vibe. A lot of content invoked history like, very historic programs and notorious operations as atmosphere, not evidence. That's narrative seasoning. So we're all used to so when we see this happen, of course, we all go to JFK and what happened and any assassinations, or we go directly there and remember what it was like or, what happened then. And it's very seasoning for us. And it creates these attributions in it towards like what we're feeling and what's really going on and the money trails and the infrastructure behind it and how well they're declassifying a lot of information. Just now they're just declassifying some information of what went on with a JFK. And without that, you have these vibes and it becomes very compelling. It becomes scary, but it's not proof, but it's just categorized that separates that makes us feel like we just kind of go back to what it felt during at that time. But in the middle of all of this one clip, and I don't have the clip, but I have it was Erica Kirk at the memorial and like forgiving the accused killer, which was just unbelievable to me, and pledging to continue her husband's mission. And whatever your politics are, that's a grounded, very grounded data point in a storm of hot takes. It's also a reminder that narratives are built around real families and real pain. And I think the biggest message that came away is like, what happened with George Floyd, it was just mayhem came out, but there was no mayhem. There was no we're all horrified. If anything, the mayhem was kind of on the left and the people going like crazy and saying horrible stuff about this poor kid who just had his own beliefs and his own thoughts. And people were 100% being happy he's dead. It was just horrible. It was absolutely they're rejoicing in his death. I could just imagine if the right was rejoicing on George Floyd's death, how horrible that would be. You shouldn't rejoice in anybody's death. I don't care who you are, what you believe in. 100%, it just goes to who you are and your character, not really doesn't go to the person that especially Charlie Kirk. I don't think he was hurting anybody with his views. They were just words. They were just words. If you didn't believe him when he said you don't have to listen, you could just tune him out. Who needs to listen to him? But anyways, guys, please let me know what you think. I'm not saying this was a psyops operation. I know a lot of theories have been out there. I was just listening to this guy this weekend, and it just seems like I took his top 10 and kind of put it over to the, it just made me think a lot. Just ask more questions. Like I said, for me, the biggest thing is the lack of blood. I've been through 2 surgeries and chemo and a bunch of other crap in the last 2 years, and I've seen a lot of blood. So, it just seems very odd to me that he could get that through the neck, and there wasn't a trail of blood when they picked him up from where he was sitting. There was no blood on the chair because the guy turns around, takes his chair, steps on it, takes the camera down. I'm like, if there was blood on that chair, I don't think he would be stepping on it. I'm a cr and when I was going through all my chemotherapy, I watched, I don't know if I was in a dark place, but I watched true crime over, like, day in and day out. I was just watching true crime, and I don't care if you're in a friggin' trailer park in the middle of fucking bumfuck nowhere. If there's a death or there's a crime scene, there's yellow tape. No one's taking shit down. No one's taking down cameras. No one's taking shit apart. No one's like, there is a crime scene. There is the yellow caution tape. There is like, none of that happened, and I just can't figure out why that didn't happen. What this is anyways, so let me know your thoughts. Please like, subscribe, share, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.